Matt came to me making $25 an hour in a dead-end office job with a 3-hour commute. And in under 30 days, we had 3 tech sales offers for him on the table with no tech background, no SaaS experience, and no fancy resume. In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how we did it. You're gonna see his original resume, learn what was wrong with it, and see how we fixed it. I'll walk you through the interview processes he went through and the things he did that got him the job. And I'll show you the decision-making process we went through to land on which offer he was going to take out of the 3. This isn't just his story. This is the exact system. Before tech sales, Matt was an office manager at a healthcare clinic. He was making around $52,000 a year, which is around $25 an hour, and he had a 1.5 hour commute each way, so 3 hours a day on the road. His shifts were long split shifts with unpaid breaks, and this left him exhausted, drained, and stuck in survival mode. And in terms of his career, it was stagnant, going nowhere. On paper, everything looked fine, but in reality, this job was a trap. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't entitled, he was just working really hard in a role that gave him zero leverage. He felt stuck in routine, burnt out by the commute alone, and ultimately wondered if this really was what his adult life was going to be for the next 50 years. What made this so much harder for him is that Matt knows his calling. He is called to fight human trafficking, but he was in a role that gave him zero opportunity or leverage to put himself in the position where he had the resources to do so. His income, schedule, and energy levels basically made that impossible. And sales really appealed to him because performance is all that mattered, income wasn't capped, and he would be able to have true freedom. But trying to break into tech sales on his own was not working. Matt was doing what everyone else who's trying to get into tech sales was doing, around 10 to 20 LinkedIn Easy Apply applications per day with zero response from managers and recruiters unless it was an email with an auto rejection in it. Actually, to his credit, he did make it to a final round interview, but he bombed the mock call portion, and so they didn't move forward with him. And for him, that was his breaking point. That's when he decided he needed structure, mentorship, and a proven system to help him break into tech sales. We got him set up in the system, and right away, we jumped on his resume and LinkedIn profile. So if we look at the resume that Matt sent over, there's a lot of issues with it. The first issue being visually, it looks like every other resume I've ever seen as a hiring manager, a 1920s newspaper. And the problem with this is that it just looks like white noise. The average recruiter looks at a resume for only 7 seconds. And if I have 7 seconds to look at this resume, I don't know what's going on here. And he doesn't immediately look like a fit for an SDR position to me. So I'm likely just going to move on to the next resume. But if we break down what is actually wrong here, first of all, this professional profile here, way too wordy. Nobody's actually going to take the time to read this, and bolding some of this would have helped me a little bit understand at a high level what he's doing, what kind of relevant experience he has, but none of it's bolded or clean or easy to read. Highlights of qualifications, while these are good achievements, they don't scream sales to me. In fact, the only one that screams sales to me is this bullet right here. And so already I'm distracted because of all the noise up here. This one beautiful sales bullet point right here is kind of lost in the other bullet points, and it's not easy to identify. And then if we go to his professional experience, way too wordy. These are paragraphs. We live in a TikTok, Instagram culture. Our attention spans aren't built for paragraphs anymore. So you always want to bulletize your resume and make sure that you're making it very easy for these recruiters to read. If we look at the titles, I don't see anything that screams sales here, senior associate, lead manager. I don't really understand, what the correlation here is. What I do like is down here, we've got some metrics that are bolded and relevant. 500 outbound calls per day, 35K in gross revenue. So that's good. But again, it's just so lost in this sea of words. And we don't need that. We need to be very concise, clear, and to the point of what experience we have on our resume that translates well to the SDR role. And if we look at the education down here, it's just kind of an afterthought. It's not formatted very well. So all in all, this resume is just blah. And even to the tune that I didn't even realize he was a wireless sales lead. until I got to the very bottom of the resume. And I understand that some of this is chronological here, but I would have played that out way better if I were him to highlight this experience way sooner. So let's take a look at how we fixed his resume. So right away, we can see that Matt's new resume is wildly different, and it starts with the appearance. And the reason the appearance matters is because these recruiters are just clicking through a sea of resumes that all look the same. When Matt's resume shows up in that pile, the headshot captures my attention immediately. And what this does psychologically is that it establishes trust with that recruiter. Think about it. All these other resumes, they're just black and white. They're not people. They're just letters of information. Whereas when Matt's resume pops up, he's a person. And immediately we can tell that, he's trustworthy, he's clean, he's polished, he's got a nice smile, so he's probably a joyful guy. The saying goes that the eyes are the window to the soul. And so if we can throw our headshot on our resumes, then we can start to establish a trusting connection with these recruiters and increase our odds that they're actually going to read the rest of our resume. Now, outside of that, we can see that we have a clean, subtle color pop with this blue banner and these blue accents. This is very intentional because we want them to be drawn in to continue reading the resume. And if they do continue reading the resume, what you'll see right away is we've got this very clear headline of who Matt is. If we look at the old resume, there's nothing here that tells me immediately that Matt is interested in sales. I would have to read through a bunch of text to dig that out. But this resume does a great job of highlighting right away that Matt is a sales professional. So as a recruiter, my brain goes, okay, cool. I can trust the guy. Looks like he's a sales professional. Let me keep reading. And that's the whole point of a resume. It's to try to get them engaged enough to keep reading. And the rest of the layout here is just very clean, right? Contact, experience, education, skills, tools, courses, references. We're answering every question that this recruiter is going to have, but we're making the most of the real estate we have on this 8x11 piece of paper. This other resume, we did get a huge chunk right here of his summary, some qualifications, his experience, and then a little blurb at the bottom on his education. That is not maximizing the real estate you have on this sheet of paper in comparison to this. So as a recruiter, the next thing I'm going to do is dial in on his experience section. And you'll notice that the biggest text boxes we have are for these titles. And that's very intentional because when I look at this resume as a recruiter, I'm trying to figure out, one, do I trust the guy? Yes, I see his headshot. Two, is he meant for sales? Yep, he definitely is. Okay, now let's get more specific. Why is he qualified for sales? And boom, I'm hit with these big bolded titles here that tell this story that he is actually qualified for these positions that he's applying for. And that's going to compel me to read a little bit more. Now, again, I'm not going to spend time reading every line on this resume, but because we've bulletized our experience section, I'm way more likely to read each line than I am this resume, where I have to read a book every time I want to understand what his experience was. So you definitely want to use these bulletized line items here, and you want to be sure to bold anything that is directly relevant to the role so that they don't actually have to read each paragraph. Rather, they're just going to be able to see the bolding and go, okay, cool. One-on-one coaching, SDR leader, cold outbound, outbound strategies, research, ICPs. You're just trying to hit these keywords in their brain so that they understand you have relevant experience. And if we actually look further down here, we can get into these experiences to show you how we pivoted what he had on his old resume into the new resume. So on his old resume, his title was office manager. The problem with that is that that doesn't tell a sales story. And so we can see here that he was trying to tell a sales story with his experience section, 250 appointments weekly, 80% of appointments kept. That does sound a bit SDR related, but the title doesn't reflect it. So I'm looking at this resume like he doesn't belong in sales. But if we can tweak our title and turn it into senior sales development associate, now I'm like, whoa, okay, he's definitely doing sales for this organization. And if we look at the actual line items here, we can see manage a pipeline of 250 plus appointments weekly, executes daily KPIs of 50 plus cold calls to close new patients on receiving care with a goal of 10 patients per week. This is SDR language. This is way better than what was said over here on this resume. And we can also see that he's talking about a CRM system, 70 plus active patients, closed and onboarded 100 plus patients. And so while his role was not a tech sales SDR, he was truly an office manager. manager, we took the components of his office manager job and really blew those up and highlighted those to make sure we're telling this story that he wasn't just an office manager, but he was legitimately doing sales for this organization. So at this point, as a recruiter, I'm thinking Matt has sales experience. Let me look at this senior associate role and see what this is about. And at a glance, again, I can see that there are dollar signs. I see words like volume, which tells me he's selling. Closing ratio here, 67%. He's got a massive number of prospects he's dialed, month-over-month quota attainment, CRM tracking. So all of these keywords are words that I look for someone who belongs in sales. And so while his title is senior associate, I can at a glance fully understand that he was selling. And this is way better than what he had prior to this. Prior to this, it's more of a qualitative description of what he did. Executed personalized strategies, entered negotiations with sellers, financial analysis, so on and so forth. The problem with describing your resume qualitatively for sales roles is that I don't care about any of this. I don't need you to describe what you did in your last role. And that's a big mistake that a lot of you are probably making right now, is you're qualitatively describing your work experience. What I want to see on every line possible is a quantitative description of the work you're doing, where you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3 numbers in one bullet resume line item right here. I've got one number right here, one number right here. Right here. Every single bullet point has a metric associated with it. That's how we want to structure our experience section, with a big focus on quantitative metrics rather than qualitative descriptors. By the way, if you're tired of applying to hundreds of tech sales jobs and hearing nothing back, click the link in the description below for completely free step-by-step training that shows you exactly how to structure your resume, set up your outbound to land interviews, and how to crush those interviews. Once we got the resume and LinkedIn dialed in, we then had Matt start to apply to jobs on November 12th, and we can see that he added his first person to his Apollo sequence on the 12th. And right here in the sequence structure, high level, this is a way to do multi-channel outbound to get in touch with these managers and recruiters. So it's a mix of sending videos, text messages, making phone calls, sending emails, using LinkedIn, basically doing the job to get the job, to get attention and land interviews. And so we can see here that Matt started to do that work. He sent out some text messages here. He actually was able to get in touch with an account executive at a company right here, and they were pretty impressed and willing to use a referral for him. And he started to send out these video messages to these managers and recruiters. And ultimately, he landed his first interview on November 19th, just 7 days after executing the process. And if we look at what he did here, he reached out directly to a hiring manager. And if we look at what the manager said, he said, "Tell me a little bit about how you found my number." Because Matt had said, "I sent you a connection request on LinkedIn." And this manager said, "So did 100 other people. Way to stand out," kind of being sarcastic. And then Matt explained to him how he found his number and how he reached out to him. And that's what impressed the manager enough to land an interview. So that's proof right there that you must do multi-channel outbound. You cannot be on LinkedIn like everyone else, because 99 other people are also reaching out to that manager on LinkedIn. Use Apollo, find a phone number, send a text, make a call, stand out, and be different. So all in all, looking at Matt's outbound process, he only had to reach out to 11 people total to land 3 job offers in under 30 days. And that's because he learned how to do the outbound, land the interviews quickly, and crush the interviews. Most people fail SDR interviews because they talk about what they want rather than demonstrating competence about what they can actually do. And this is similar to the resume conversation, where we don't really care about qualitative descriptions of your work experience. We want metrics, we want numbers, we want proof, we want evidence, because anyone can come into an interview and tell me what I want to hear, that they're hardworking, they love tech, they want to grow a career, but it's the people that can demonstrate to me that they've already been doing those things in their previous work experience that I'm going to hire, because they have proof. And so when you're in these interviews, the most effective frame you can use is called the 3P framework. I have other videos on my channel that talk about it, but it's essentially perspective, proof, and plan. You want to give your general perspective on whatever they're asking you about. Then you want to give proof and evidence that you've done that thing. And then you want to talk about how you're going to apply all of that as an SDR at their company and what your plan is to make sure that you do that thing when you're in the role. So in Matt's context, when he gets asked questions about about failure, he's not just going to give some vague example about how he messed up at the office one day. He actually gave a very metric-based answer around some of the patients he had to schedule, some scheduling issues they had, and what he learned from that situation. And then he applied that learning to, as an SDR at your company, I understand that I'm going to be scheduling meetings for account executives and I'm going to be responsible for my own pipeline. I have experience with a pipeline managing over 70 to 100 patients at any given time, but I'm going to be sure that I slow down, I'm detail oriented, and that I keep my CRM hygiene very high as I go through the SDR process. Boom. That's what the manager wants to hear. They want a specific example from your previous work experience contextualized for the SDR role you're about to go into. That is the ultimate form of reassurance for us managers when we're interviewing you. Matt executed our interview preparation process to a T, and it actually led him to landing 3 offers within a very close proximity of each other. Actually, his second offer coming in on December 8th and his third and final offer coming in on December 19th, just 11 days later. And this ultimately was the company he landed on. One of the most important questions you're going to get asked right in the beginning of any interview you go into is, tell me about yourself. And we can look at the way Matt structured his answer right here. So first off, he thanks the interviewer for the time they're taking to interview him. Very important. You want to be respectful. You want to show gratitude. And before you answer any question from the recruiter, make sure you start off on that note of gratitude. And he gets into a quick backstory on who he is, because oftentimes these recruiters will just ask you, tell me about your work experience. And it's a very sterile conversation. What you're trying to do, similar to the resume, is build trust in that human connection. And so rather than just jump straight into, I worked here, and worked here, I want to tell you about me and my life in a very short, concise way so that you know why I'm here, not just that I am here. And so in Matt's case, he talked about how he grew up with his dad in the Navy, good childhood, didn't have to struggle, parents worked hard, he had discipline as a strong value growing up, and that environment shaped his life. And so he then shares that his why in life is to build a future where he can provide stability, opportunity, and freedom to his family one day. The same thing his parents did for him. And because of that, he always held himself to a high standard, stayed competitive, and in college, now he catches up to his professional experience. He needed to earn money just to survive. And that actually led him into his role at NP Capital, where he generated $78K in revenue. And that was the moment for him that clicked, because that's the moment he fell in love with sales. Loved being judged by his output, not his age or resume, being in control of his results. And since then, he's been very clear that he wants to be in this environment. And that's what brings him here today. So pausing real fast, we can see that he laid out a little bit of his backstory that drives that human emotional connection. He then shares what his why is, and that's to be financially successful because of how he grew up. So now I have a very clear understanding of what drives him. He then shares a clean story of how he got into his last professional gig and what that backstory is. And then he uses that to share how much he loves sales, and that's when he found out sales is exactly what he wants to do. And that's actually what brings him here today. He's excited about interviewing with the company. And right here, he's talking about why specifically he wants to work for this company. You can see there's demonstrated research here. I love how you're helping normal people take care of taxes. That's a mission I can get behind. And so what you're demonstrating to me as the hiring manager is you did your research. You know what you're selling. You know what you're getting into, which is crucial because most people I interview honestly did not take the time to research my company. And I know it because they're not talking about what inspires them about working for our company. And if I were to ask them about what we do, they'd have a very vague and bland answer. But in this case, Matt's being proactive, sharing why he's specifically interested in the product we have, but he's also talking about the people at the company. He really wants to be surrounded by high performers so that he can grow and get better. And that's what excites him to be interviewing today. So within a 2-minute and 40-second interview response here, I have a full picture of who Matt is, why he does what he does, why he wants to be in sales, why he's interested in my company. And that is exactly what I need to hear from someone who's going to be a good fit for the role that I'm hiring for. To determine which offer to accept, we looked at 3 things: product, people, people and pay? Do you like what you're going to be selling? Do you like the people you're going to be working for? And do you think the pay is competitive and does it excite you? In a perfect world, you would get all three. Being realistic though, you're always going to sacrifice one of those things. Example, maybe you love the product you're selling and you really believe in the leadership at that company. You know you're going to be supported, but the pay isn't as competitive as other offers. Well, maybe that's worth it to you to go to the right company, knowing that eventually your pay will catch up if you're doing something you're passionate about with people you like. Conversely, maybe the pay is really good and the people are good, but you could care less about the actual software you're selling. Well, that's a totally legitimate reason to accept this offer, because you know that later in your career, you can go find something you're passionate about selling once you have more resume experience. So you're only going to get to pick 2 out of 3 typically. And what Matt ended up choosing was a company where the pay and the people were really, really good. He landed on an $80K fully remote offer where people are definitely hitting quota, and he feels very supported by the leadership and energized by the culture. One thing to be very, very careful about is when these managers and recruiters throw these big on-target earnings your way, like 90K, 100K OTE, you need to make sure that people are actually hitting quota. And the best way to do that is to reach out at reps already at the company and ask them what their experience is at the company. And through that conversation, you'll be able to get a good gauge on whether people are hitting their targets or not. So this is how we took Matt from a dead end job making $25 an hour to almost doubling his income with 3 tech sales offers in under 30 days. He didn't have any experience. He wasn't in tech before. He didn't get lucky. He followed a proven system that works. He fixed his resume. He showed up daily and did the multi-channel outreach, landed interviews, prepped for those interviews, crushed the interviews, and ultimately landed on an offer that's going to set him up for the highest leverage success he has out of all 3 options. This is exactly what's possible when you stop guessing and you follow a proven system. If you want help implementing a system like this that works and it's going to get you from where you are right now, stuck, unsure how to proceed, into a great tech sales role, click the link in the description below for completely free step-by-step training showing you how to set all of this up. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.